Okay, so if you have Criterion Collection or Mubi or Canopy, you're eventually going to stumble onto movies that are super hard hitting. They probably wouldn't fly with pop culture audiences, but they're simultaneously, they feel important, and they're also kind of, to me, fragmented in a way. And I'll get back to what I mean by that, fragmented. I just finished watching Andrei Tarkovsky's film Nostalgia, and it's one of those films that is like drenched in philosophy and meaning and existential crisis, and it has what feels like a very heavy theme while being very simplistic and beautiful and well shot, and you sort of feel like you're in some sort of a purgatory in a way. There's no rush. You're not trying to get anywhere. There's no place that you need to be. It's just something that floats, and I hate to use the term high art, but it feels a little bit like that it's trying to connect with that. I don't want to. It sounds like I'm trying to say that it's a caricature of itself, like a Wes Anderson film has kind of become a caricature of Wes Anderson. You know, I loved this movie, and I just finished it, and I didn't want to give myself too long to think about it because I just wanted to sort of just talk about it, and I'm sure by the end of this I will have gone into a couple different ideas that might be contradicting themselves, but the overwhelming sense that I get watching this film is a feeling of loss and isolation, but also a beauty. And I don't know if I'm seeing that as like an artist and a filmmaker myself, and I'm just sort of like high off of the aesthetic quality of it, like the shots and the movements and the color of it and the mood of the actors, and the beautiful actor who's in there. I can't remember her name. I think it's Claudia, maybe. Sorry, I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get these names wrong. The names. This is part of what I'm talking about. The names don't really matter because these people sort of represent you, or me, or it felt like going through these things. It's about a guy who's supposed to go to Italy, a Russian, and he's supposed to research a composer, right? Some Italian composer, and I didn't recognize the name, so it's probably fictitious, though I don't know. And while he's there, he kind of drifts aimlessly and runs into different characters. There's a woman there who tries to, hook up with him. He's married. He's not really interested because he's walking around feeling existential. He's feeling philosophical. He's opining the meaning of life, right? And it sounds cheesy to say that. It sounds like I'm describing something that's a black and white, film school, art school type film. But it's really heavy hitting, and it's really beautifully done. And I didn't walk out of it thinking that life was heavy. I actually kind of walked out of it thinking how beautiful it is to come up with these ideas. And maybe I'm talking too specifically about the things that happen. For example, he runs into a guy who had locked up his family because he thought the world was ending, right? He clearly has mental health issues. And they were there for a long time, I think. They became free. He runs into this guy, the main character, the Russian who's, trying to do research on this Italian composer. But really, he's just there kind of contemplating the nature of life. And the guy tells him, you've got to walk this candle across this courtyard that's kind of like a water feature thing, right? And it's windy, and it takes a long time to get through this scene, like 8 or 9 minutes of no talking, just him walking. And he almost makes it a couple of times, and then he finally does. And it's just so fantastic to watch a filmmaker or artists or actors do something that not many, I don't know, I want to say not many people could pull off, but not many people will even attempt in today's world. No dialogue for 9 minutes? I'm down. I think it was great. But I love the courage to do that. And hearing the director talk about it just briefly in something that I was looking as I was sort of setting up this this shoot, it's something to do with time. He's really, Tarkovsky apparently is really into the idea that film is a very unique medium to talk about or experiment or explore time. And I assume he means linear time. But the idea that somebody could do this scene and have it like affect so many people. I would assume that you clicked on this video because you like Tarkovsky, or there's something about that kind of Criterion Collection, Canopy, movie type European, Russian existential film school thing that you like. And if you haven't seen this, you'll definitely, if you're that type of person, you'll definitely like this movie. But that's how it ends. And I didn't walk away from it. And this is what I mean by fragmented. I didn't walk away from it thinking like, okay, here's the arc, and this happens, and there's this crisis, and I didn't get the sense that anything was resolved. But I didn't get the sense that anything was unresolved, if that makes sense. I feel like I kind of drifted in and out of scenes that had a common thread in that it's the main character who's sort of walking through this. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire, except there's very little talk, much less talking, about these people who kind of wander in and out of lives, barely, not even noticed. I mean, he's noticed in this one because Wim Wenders' film is their guardian angels, essentially. Great movie, by the way, as well. But I just mean that I didn't get the sense that the story being told is being told in a way that is meant to connect with a wide variety of people, even though it applies to a wide variety of people. Does that make sense? The way that he's telling the story is a unique thing, and it feels not fragmented in a quick way, but fragmented in a longer sense. These long breaths that take part. I could be in the middle of the movie or the beginning of the movie or the end. I don't fucking know, and I don't fucking care because it's beautiful and I'm in it. There's smart things being said, even by the crazy man who sets himself on fire at the end, which is pretty crazy. He's sort of preaching in the town square. All these things happening. I don't feel like I'm watching a film that is like, a traditional film where the credits roll and we establish the characters and here's the crisis and I feel like this movie is still continuing somewhere in space and time. Like it just keeps going on, whether it's the main character or not. It just drifts into somebody else's life. Like I feel like I caught this thoughtful conversation that is happening somewhere else. I picked it up in mid-conversation and I put the phone down after 2 hours and somebody else is, continuing it somewhere else. And it keeps existing. So maybe fragment isn't the right word, but it's just continuing. And I don't feel like there's necessarily a beginning or an end. Not that there isn't a beginning or end in this, but I just mean that it's not as important. It just is something that drifts intentionally and unintentionally through all these thoughts and ideas that are relevant not just to the characters, obviously, to the people who are watching it. And I also think a lot about what are the barriers to these types of movies? If you put this movie back out and you put it into a theater that's playing Mission Impossible and The Avengers, people would eventually see it, maybe not a lot of people. How would you market it? How would it go over? I would love to see a screen test or whatever. Get your average let's just say American, because I've lived in other countries, but let's just say the US. I would love to know how they would react to it. It's not super long, right? 2 hours and change, maybe. But it's not dealing with things that are unrelatable. It's beautiful shots. You get to see some beautiful woman here with her top open. I'm just saying, it moves tickets. But my point is that you're getting things that are relatable to the everyday person. I'll give you a quick example. There was a composer in the mid-20th century. I think his name was Pierre Schaeffer. My teachers would probably shudder in horror by not remembering that. Anyway, Pierre Schaeffer was he was a composer, right? And we're coming out of the time of like Mahler and Shostakovich and all these guys. But Pierre Schaeffer was an electronic composition composer. In other words, he was using like different electronic compositions in speakers. And this was the mid-20th century, right? So the first time anybody does anything like this, I think, Pierre Schaeffer has this concert and there's this wall of speakers instead of an orchestra, right? And people come in from the public. Because remember, this is early to mid-20th century or whatever it is. Like they don't, there's no TVs, they have radio. But what happens is he ends up playing this interesting avant-garde type of music, even today, but especially at the time, where it's just recordings of like trains and people bustling and street sounds, but it's kind of patched together in a weird way. That's kind of what he did at certain points. And instead of having this reaction from the audience of like, this is, blasphemy of the orchestral hall, we need to hear Beethoven and Mahler, people were really into it. And I think that they were into it because they identified with the sounds. They went in there thinking, I don't really, it's Pierre Schaeffer, maybe we should expect that it's going to be something strange. But if you went in there and they had played like an orchestral symphony and different things that were familiar, they would have been okay with that too. But to show them this sort of experimental setup with speakers, and you're playing, taped works, taped being like they're pre-recorded, you'd think that people would kind of revolt against that, but because they connected with the sounds that were familiar to them, they were into it. That's my point about Tarkovsky. You might expect that if you played this in a theater that people would kind of think, what is this? Where's the laughs? I don't hear any fart jokes. But they're themes of love and loss and isolation and depression and what's my purpose here and what, people lose their minds and set themselves on fire, these zealots, and the idea of having this beautiful candle and trying to get it from one edge of the pool to the other, this whatever it is, I can't remember. It's like a garden with a water feature. These are all common themes in humanity. It doesn't really matter what time period we're in. So I would be really interested to see what would happen. It's never going to happen, but I would love for it to be marketed and re-released and shown it. I would love to see this in the theater, any of his films, really. So that's kind of my general takeaway. I don't have much to say about like the form or what the overall message is, because I don't know that matters to me. Like I came away with a feeling of it, and I'm sure in multiple viewings, and as I think about it in days and weeks and go back and watch clips on YouTube or maybe watch it again, I'm sure I'll start to form other thoughts. But it's ridiculous to think that I could watch it once a week for 2 years and then do a video about it where I'm just talking. Of course I'm going to come up with something different to say, but is that going to be any more significant than what I'm saying now? I don't know, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. It's on Canopy right now if you're interested. Canopy, by the way, they're not a sponsor, but if you have a library card, you get like 10 to 15 movies a month or whatever for free. It's on there. There are other of his films on Criterion Collection. You should check it out if you've never seen it. Tarkovsky's nostalgia. There's Solaris. There are other ones you probably know the names. They were remade. Some of them. Solaris was George Clooney, I think, in the 90s, and somebody else. But great film. I'd love to know what you think. Put it below. Tarkovsky. Nostalgia. Double thumbs up.